Have you ever looked at an older relative, maybe a parent or grandparent, and just thought, well, being tired, anxious, and kind of down, that's just a normal part of getting older, right? Well, in this explainer, we're going to completely shatter that myth. We're diving deep into the hidden intersection of modern neuroscience and longevity to uncover a massive societal blind spot. We'll explore what's actually happening inside the aging brain, how to regulate our nervous systems, and why the habits we're building right now literally dictate our cognitive resilience decades down the line.
So, let's ask the big question. Is cognitive decline and depression just a normal part of aging? The short answer? Absolutely not. No way. We really need to dismantle this dangerous ageist myth right out of the gate. See, there's this fascinating, well-documented phenomenon in gerontology called the paradox of aging. And get this, research consistently shows that our subjective mental well-being and psychological resilience actually increase from middle age into very old age. Our brains are brilliantly built to adapt, They synthesize experiences into wisdom, and they actually regulate emotions better as we add years to our lives. So when depression or severe anxiety do show up, they aren't just inevitable consequences of time. They're highly treatable medical conditions that absolutely demand our attention.
But all right, here's the reality check. 14.1. That's the percentage of adults aged 70 and over worldwide who are living with a mental disorder, according to the World Health Organization. I mean, those are massive emotional and physiological stakes. We're talking about millions of people living with untreated depression and anxiety, losing years of quality life to conditions that we actually know how to manage. We've got to rethink geriatric mental health, because ignoring it, it's directly driving up rates of physical frailty, cognitive decline, and tragically, even suicide. So why is it so often missed by doctors and family members?
Well, it comes down to something incredibly fascinating called somatic masking. As we age, the body literally keeps the score. It's the gut-brain connection at play in real time. Instead of saying they feel hopeless, a grandfather might complain of just a relentless backache, or a mother might experience sudden, severe digestive issues. The brain's distress signals actually bypass emotional language and manifest directly in the nervous system and the physical body. And this makes diagnosis incredibly tough. A doctor might just treat a stomachache, completely missing the severe depression that's actually driving it.
Just look at this stark contrast. At age 30, depression typically looks like persistent sadness, tearfulness, and emotional distress. It's what we usually expect, right? But by age 80, the nervous system speaks a totally different language. It looks like unexplained chronic pain, digestive issues, severe insomnia, and just generalized weakness. In fact, older adults report 3 to 4 times more nonspecific physical complaints when they're depressed than younger folks do. Their nervous system is literally sounding an alarm, but the way it manifests has entirely shifted.
This somatic masking reveals a much deeper underlying mechanism, the bidirectional mind-body loop. You simply can't evaluate geriatric mental health in isolation from physical frailty. They're locked in this continuous, almost cinematic dance. Your emotional state actively regulates your physical inflammation, and your physical health heavily dictates your neurochemistry.
Notice how this maps out a direct cascade of burnout and decline. It starts with a physical trigger, say heart disease or Parkinson's. Now, this physical stress induces structural, brain changes, and chronic inflammatory states. That inflammation directly compromises emotional regulation, which then manifests as severe anxiety or depression. But here's where the trap snaps shut. That resulting depression destroys the executive functioning and motivation you actually need to manage the physical illness in the first place. It leads to poor medication adherence, a lack of movement, and accelerated cognitive decline. It's just a vicious, self-fulfilling feedback loop.
So you might be wondering, who bears the heavy brunt of this hidden epidemic? Well, if you're between the ages of 22 and 45 right now, the answer is most likely you. You're the demographic navigating the intense emotional, psychological, and economic burden of family caregiving. You're the ones out there trying to balance your own career, your own kids, your own mental clarity, all while suddenly managing a parent's complex physical and psychological decline.
And the reality of this burden is just staggering. 95% of older adults with long-term support needs living in the community rely on unpaid caregivers. That's an invisible army of family members, mostly adult children and spouses, bearing the weight of a massive public health crisis entirely on their own shoulders.
We're really looking at a silent caregiver epidemic here. Caregivers face reduced labor force participation and lost earnings, sure, But look at the physiological toll. 19% report high physical strain, and a massive 45% report high stress and cortisol overload. We absolutely have to validate this. Caregiver burnout isn't a personal failure or just some side effect. It's an essential crisis of nervous system dysregulation. When you're constantly in a state of hypervigilance caring for someone else, your own dopamine balance crashes, your sleep architecture changes, optimizing for threat detection rather than deep restorative recovery, and your emotional resilience, it just tanks.
But listen, there is a way forward. Let's pivot to some solutions by introducing a deeply empowering modern wellness concept: intrinsic capacity. This shifts the clinical focus away from simply slapping a Band-Aid on a disease and instead focuses on actively building reserves. It's about looking at your physical mobility, your vitality, your cognition, and your psychological well-being as one unified, optimizable system. It's about building a solid buffer so that when stress hits, whether you're 40 or 80, your system has the actual energy to recover.
So how do we practically build this capacity in older adults? Enter the PEARLS method. It's a brilliant, evidence-based framework designed to empower individuals to self-regulate their own nervous systems. First, you recognize the symptoms for what they are. Then, you define the actual contributing problems to kind of remove the overwhelming emotion. Devise actionable micro-solutions, and finally, plan social and physical activities. It's a skill-building framework that restores a true sense of agency, bringing dopamine and focus back online by proving they still have tangible control over their daily lives.
And honestly, this brings us right back to you, building your cognitive reserve, because how we treat the aging brain today maps perfectly onto your own sustainable, healthy living tomorrow. The neurobiology of an 80-year-old brain responding to exercise or stress, it's the exact same neurobiology happening in your brain right now. If you want to avoid cognitive fatigue and brain fog in your future, those investments absolutely must be made today. So the crucial point here is implementing these neuroprotective lifestyle habits. These are the practical, non-pharmacological protocols that actually stimulate neuroplasticity. Multi-component physical exercise, like walking and jogging, releases brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF, which is essentially miracle-grow for your brain cells. Mind-body practices like Tai Chi downregulate cortisol and balance out the nervous system. Interactive exergames provide dynamic cognitive stimulation, and diets rich in B vitamins and antioxidants actively buffer against neuropathology and slow cognitive decline. You're literally building the physical architecture of a resilient mind.
I really want to leave you with this thought. Every older adult deserves access to quality mental health care. Dismissing their concerns as just getting old only leads to unnecessary suffering. With the right nervous system regulation, the right lifestyle habits, and the right systemic support, our brains aren't destined for inevitable decline. They are brilliantly built to heal, to rewire, and to adapt at absolutely any age. Which brings me to a final question for you to reflect on. How are you investing in your own cognitive reserve today? Take a hard look at your sleep optimization, your stress recovery, your daily movement. Are you building a nervous system that's going to carry you with vitality into your later years? Think about it. The choices you're making today are actively writing the biological reality of your tomorrow. Stay curious, stay focused, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.